$3.2 trillion is the current estimated value of assets that are managed by hedge funds, and private equity firms are estimated to have around $2.8 trillion under management. So together, hedge funds and private equity firms control $5.2 trillion. Now, if just these two industries were a country, it would be the third largest country by GDP in the world, beating out Japan, Germany, India, the UK, France, Brazil, Italy, Canada, and the list goes on. Hedge funds are supposed to be led by the smartest people in the world, and only the uber wealthy are invited to invest in a hedge fund. But what if that wasn't the whole truth? What if there was a criminal element to hedge funds? What if behind all the galas and news appearances, hedge fund managers ruthlessly sought out more and more shady clients in the never-ending goal of more assets under ownership? And what if their best clients were those with a criminal history? In this video, I'm going to detail a leaked FBI report stating plain and clear that criminals are increasingly likely to use hedge funds to launder money. I'm going to explain exactly why hedge funds are the perfect place for criminals with millions of dollars to launder money and how they've done it. So first, what is a hedge fund and how do they work? A hedge fund is a limited partnership of investors. The term hedge is used because historically, the funds focused on hedging risk by simultaneously buying and shorting assets. The strategies used by hedge funds are usually riskier, and those riskier trades typically pay off in higher returns. Now, hedge funds are normally structured in one of three ways: master feeder, side by side, and standalone. A master feeder structure works like this. There's one main fund, and it's usually incorporated in an offshore secrecy jurisdiction. Think of somewhere like the Cayman Islands. By registering the fund in the Caymans, they can avoid both state and federal taxes. Now, once the master fund is established, they form smaller feeder funds. One fund is incorporated in the US and one in an offshore location. Now, the feeder fund incorporated in the US is solely for US companies to invest in. Typically, this would include pension funds and other type of companies that have to pay US taxes. The offshore feeder fund is for US tax-exempt investors. These are companies and investors who don't pay US taxes and want to keep it that way. So they invest in the offshore feeder fund. Now, these feeder funds then send those investments to the master fund, who actually does the investing. This recent leaked report from the FBI detailed a few examples of exactly how this is taking place. Example 1. An unidentified Mexican cartel operating out of California paid individuals to open up hedge fund accounts. Cartel laundered approximately $1 million through the accounts each week and then withdrew the money to purchase gold. The second example. In April of 2019, a former partner of a major US law firm helped launder more than $400 million from a fraudulent cryptocurrency investment scheme, which took in the funds from financial institutions operating out of the Cayman Islands and Ireland, both favorite places to incorporate hedge funds. Example 3. The report also describes how in July of 2019, a representative of a US and UK based hedge fund proposed using a series of shell corporations to purchase and sell prohibited items from sanctioned countries to the United States. FBI uncovered details about how a New York-based hedge fund received more than $100 million in wire transfers from an identified Russian-based company that is allegedly associated with Russian organized crime. Now, that last one sounds a lot like this clip from the show Billions.
You can't lose my money.
No, of course not. My every move is geared to make and not lose money.
No, you can't lose my money. If you do, we have a problem. Understood?
Here's why hedge funds are amazing ways to launder money. 1. You can invest in a feeder fund in an offshore jurisdiction like the Cayman Islands or Ireland. The anti-money laundering and due diligence laws there are a joke at best. 2. Hedge fund managers make more money if they have more money to manage. So they're incentivized to turn a blind eye to where the money is coming from. And 3, the US damn near welcomes money laundering with hedge funds. Banks have to comply with pretty strict anti-money laundering laws, but those same laws do not apply to hedge funds. So they can take almost any client as long as they have plausible deniability. And more money to manage means more fees. This is how hedge fund managers get paid, 2 and 20. They charge a 2% fee for all assets they manage, regardless if they make their investors money or not. So let's say you invest $10 million with the hedge fund. $200,000 will be paid in the fee to the hedge fund manager. Hedge funds that have assets under management of $10 billion, that 2% is $200 million in fees. Then they also get 20% of the profits the hedge fund manager makes you on your money. So let's say you invested $10 million and the hedge fund had a good year and you earned $1.5 million in profit. That's a 15% return, which is pretty good. But remember, you have to pay the 2% fee of your investment. So 2% of $10 million is $200,000. Then you'd pay 20% of the $1.5 million, which is $300,000. So in total, you're paying $500,000. So instead of walking away with the $11.5 million, which is your initial investment plus profit, you'd walk away with $11 million. Again, this isn't bad at all for the investor. Getting a 15% return in 1 year is not easy. And for the hedge fund manager, it's great. They get a fee plus profits. But what happens if the hedge fund sucks for a year? Well, let's say the hedge fund ends the year at break even. There aren't any profits to take 20% from, but the manager still gets the 2% fee of $200,000. So you'd end the year at $9.8 million. The more assets the hedge fund has under management, the more guaranteed fees they can get. So they're incentivized to take on as much money as they possibly can. The hedge fund and criminal partnership is actually a match made in heaven. Here's how it would work. The criminal has some illegal money and wants to clean it. All they would do is incorporate a company in a place like the Cayman Islands or even Panama. Once the money is in an account, they'll find a hedge fund who's willing to take their money. And there are a lot out there. The hedge fund, who again wants more money, can't be seen connected to this person. So they'll likely use an intermediary like a money manager. The hedge fund won't take the deposit directly. They'll use a feeder fund. The criminal will use a money manager who wires the money to the feeder fund. When the money is invested, hedge funds typically lock the funds for at least a year. This means the criminal can't withdraw their investment, but it's safe. After a year, the criminal can redeem or withdraw their money, and at minimum, they'll be down 2%. That's a damn great return for them. Typically, when cleaning money, they're going to lose much more than 2%. Sometimes up to 20% is lost to cleaning the money. But let's say the hedge fund didn't do that great. It doesn't matter as much, within reason, of course, because they get to walk away with clean funds. The passing of time gives the money the appearance of legitimacy. And since hedge funds normally deal in large sums of money, when the criminal gets a wire into their US account for millions of dollars, they're able to point to the hedge fund as the source. The bank clears it because it looks like a legitimate source of funds. The appearance of legitimacy matters more than anything else. Although banks and most securities brokers are required by law to identify the true owners behind these investments and report any red flags, private equity firms, venture capital firms, and hedge funds are not. So let's compare what hedge funds have to comply with versus their closest competitor, which would be a broker-dealer. Now, an example of a broker-dealer would be Charles Schwab, E-Trade, and TD Ameritrade. So here's a chart. An anti-money laundering program. This is required for broker-dealers, but not for hedge funds or private equity. Bank Secrecy Act filings, like a currency transaction report, required for broker-dealers, but not for hedge funds or private equity. Customer due diligence, the most basic level, aka know your customer, required for broker-dealers, but not for hedge funds or private equity. This isn't going to change anytime soon. Why? Lobbyists. Like any good industry, there are lobbyists to make sure the laws don't change in a way that hedge funds don't want them to. Shoot, most congressmen and congresswomen are invested in a hedge fund one way or the other. The Investment Advisors Association's stance, which is a lobbying group, is that some advisors will need to implement costly changes that aren't warranted. The truth of the matter is, the amount of due diligence required could likely be done by 1 or 2 employees. The real reason they're fighting this is super rich people don't like anyone asking them questions about where their money came from, nor where it's going. Hedge funds will claim that they have and abide by AML procedures, but we don't have any proof because hedge funds don't have to file any reports with the government, so we won't know exactly how many suspicious transactions occur. We won't know where the true source of funds from these investments come from, and that's likely not going to change anytime soon. Hedge fund managers have enough politicians in their pocket to ensure the laws never work against them. That's all for today, guys. Let me know if you want me to cover any of the topics in the comment section below. Also, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out the channel a ton.